You have limited time, right? Time is your biggest asset. You need to take yourself and kind of like, how do I split the amoeba, right? How do I split the atom and create like a mini me? Well, that's like a virtual assistant. Now you just recuperated 20 to 40, 60 hours a week of your time. So you can literally solve some of your biggest hurdles by hiring virtual team members. When I hire my virtual team members, I actually hired them while I was building the process. So once the process is built and they have a say in it, and they one, they take ownership of it, and two, I don't have to sit back, I don't have to go back and build a process, hire somebody, and then train them. I do it all at one.
If you're going to grow, you have to put a dollar value on your time.
Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, how are we doing?
Not bad. So, we're filming this in November, but this will probably air in December. Like, are you ready in November with your goals for first quarter next year yet?
Yeah, man, just keep plowing ahead here.
Doing one thing and doing it really good. Is that the goal?
Well, doing it really well, Mark. Well, not good, but yes, that's.
Man, my wife is a former English teacher or major or whatever, and yeah, I get that well, good corrected all the time on me. So I appreciate.
I'm like 80% confident I was correct there. Not,
yeah,
it might be good.
I appreciate you carrying my personal life into my work life. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no, I want to just keep you here. Yeah, man, I'm ready to roll. Just I look at things kind of on a quarterly basis, so it's not a Jan 1's not some huge like day for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think anyone 12-week work year, that's another book I recommend for this time of year for people. And it's not like Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, but it's more of chunking down all your goals into quarterly milestones or quarterly goals. So I think that is it's a good book to read at this time of year.
Yeah, I think it's also, I believe it's that book. It really talks about focusing on process. Like we're all results driven. We're all, results. That's what you need. But sometimes they come from something you did a year ago, or you just got lucky, or you just got unlucky. So like, what can you control and focus on that? And ultimately the results will hit.
Well, I think, yeah, when you chunk it down to milestones, I have to, even if it's, in order to get this, you track it all the way back, you reverse engineer it back to, if I'm not making 10 phone calls a day to do this, like there's a good chance I'm not going to hit this goal 12 months from now. And sometimes you have to trace things all the way that far back to a tactical daily step that you need to make sure you're accomplishing.
And it's tough holding yourself accountable then. Right? Like we all feel like we're kings of the world, but like, it's tough holding yourself accountable to like, yeah, but it didn't matter. I skipped that. I got these things going on. It's like, no, like this is the stuff that adds up.
But they got to do what we do. You got to go online and just simply say, I'm going to do this. That way you feel obligated and you have to do it.
Yeah. So what other commitments do you want to make? All right. 2025, there's going to be at least 4 Suki events there. It's out in the air. Now we got to do it.
All right, good. And of those 4, at least 2 of them will be kind of some joint events, and we're going to record episodes in person. So there you go.
All right, cool. Now we got something to aim for. So. All right, what do we got for our housing provider tip here?
All right, so along the lines of what we're going to talk about today, as being a housing provider, there's numerous parts of that can be outsourced. I get calls all the time from owners that, they're not ready for property management, whether I know them and they don't want to kind of give it all up, or I know they won't want to outsource payment wise for all the steps, but there's certain things you could outsource. And we're going to talk about today, having somebody do some of the tasks, but whether it be maintenance, outsourcing it to someone that's going to take those calls on the nights and weekends, or if it's leasing, hiring someone like GC to actually just do your lease up, because you're going to spend 20, 30 hours between showing it and underwriting and all that stuff. There's different parts of it. It's not, a lot of people don't realize it's not self-managed, do everything 100% myself, or hire a property manager and do it. There's a lot of pieces in between. And if you ever want to talk about what that looks like, or the different resources out there for you to outsource some of those things, I'm always happy to help with that. But yeah, keep that in mind. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes not outsourcing what you're not good at, or what you're not, what you don't like doing and maybe put off and you don't do it as good. Those are the things that are going to stunt your growth. So recognizing that about yourself is the first kind of challenge that you have, and looking at yourself in the mirror, what I don't like to do or what I'm not good at, and then realizing how can I get that off my plate?
I like it. Let's bring in our guest here. You guys have known each other for years.
Yeah. So I met our guest today, I think 6-7 years ago. He's helped me in my career. Hopefully I've helped him a couple of times here and there, but he's a real estate investor like you and me. He created grew and sold a property management company to one of the biggest property managers in the industry. He's now on to his newest baby, VPM Solutions, which we'll talk into how VPM could help our listeners here today. But without further ado, I want to bring in Pete Neubig. Pete.
Oh man, I appreciate it, Mark. Good to see you again. And Tom, nice to meet you through the Zoom.
Yeah, we're excited here. Let's
Thanks
do
for
this,
having, guys. I've been pestering Mark for like years to get on his awesome podcast. It's like the hottest thing in the property management industry. Like, oh, did you hear about the Straight Up podcast? I'm like, that MFer hasn't got me on there yet. So I'm finally on. So hopefully I don't disappoint, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you coming on here. You're a podcast host yourself. You do the NARPM podcast. Tell us a little bit about how you got into doing that for NARPM. I'm just kind of curious on that.
Man, you just ask sometimes. NARPM is a nonprofit organization. They're always looking for help. And somebody else was kind of doing it, but it was like their podcast, and NARPM just kind of piggybacked on it. So I just went up to the executive leadership, who I knew because I was a regional vice president for NARPM while I was a property manager. And then I became a vendor. And I just basically went up to her and I said, hey, I'll be more than happy to run the podcast if you want me to be the host. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yep. And they said, okay. And that was it. So it's a non-paying gig. And I have a lot of fun doing it though. And we talk all things property management.
Awesome. Well, for those who don't know, NARPM, National Association of Residential Property Management, it's similar to, or the Realtor Association for realtors, or similar to CAA for apartment owners. This association, it's hell, man. I think it's pretty affordable. I think it's only like $300 a year, like, and you get access to a wealth of people. We didn't join NARPM until probably about 10 years into being in business, which then when we started getting out there and talking to people through that organization, we actually took off. So it's been a huge thing for us, for you property managers that are out there.
Yeah, I also, for you guys that are self-managers, they just opened up membership, I think starting in 2025, where if you own your own properties and manage them, you can become a member and get access to all of their resources.
Oh, wow. That's huge. I did not know that.
Yep.
You heard it here first. I love it. So
yeah, breaking news.
Yeah. So Pete, man, you're a podcaster. We'll talk about kind of what you're doing today. You started off as an investor. You own a property management company. You exited from that property management company in a roll up.
Yeah, let me give you my last 20 plus years in like 3 minutes. How's that?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So, let's do it. Set the table.
All right. So at 30 years old, I bought my first property. It was a duplex. And the reason why I was always taught, get a good job, go to school, get good grades, and get a good job. I went to a 2-bit school, got 2-bit grades, and got a 2-bit job, basically, right? And I thought that that was my career forever. And I was in IT, I was an information tech guy. And at 31, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, how do I can't do this the rest of my life. Like there's more to this. And so I started buying real estate. At the time, I didn't think I was smart enough to own a business. And it's just a mindset thing. Just I'm not smart enough. And so I went the investor route because I'm like, well, heck, buying a house is easy. And so I'm like, it's pretty simple math, right? I buy the house for X, I rent it for Y, here are my expenses. Like I can do basic math, right? They didn't teach math like they do today from right to left and critical math and all that stuff. Like they taught math regular, like an abacus and shit. So I'm like, I can figure that out. Found a real estate investor group, bought a duplex. I was a passive investor in a 100-unit apartment complex. Lost my money on the 100-unit apartment complex, which maybe you have me on another time. And I'll tell you my whole story on that. Got sued for 1.5 million. That was really fun. Great time in my life.
We're not glossing over this. Let's hold on. We're hitting the brakes. What lost the money? What happened here? Like, give us, we don't need the 30-minute details, but you teased us. Let's hear it.
Okay. So we bought the apartment complex for 1.5 million. We had some financial challenges. The bank said they would work with us, told us don't pay the mortgage for a few months. We're going to restructure your loan. And a few months later, we found that our apartment complex was on the courtroom steps. They sold it for 2.1 million, and they still came back and sued us for the 1.5, even though they made money on the deal. So there's lots of that's the high level stuff. So I'm gonna go back. So I buy a bunch of properties. Okay. So I buy all these Class D properties, terrible properties, hard to manage. And now I'm looking for a manager. didn't even know that property management existed. So I built my own property management firm, thought I created the industry. A year and a half later, I find NARPM, find out that there's thousands of people that actually do this for a living. I'm like, holy cow. Then I realized I was doing everything wrong. I end up going from like the worst property management firm to in about 7 years, I think from 12 to 19 when I sold, I was one of the better property management firms. I ran about 900 to 1,000 units, single family, in 3 markets in Texas. And then I exited that. And I'm pretty open. It was about 4.6, around 4.6, 4.7 million. I exited that. Took a job with the company that bought us. They hated me. I hated them. I realized that I was no longer employable, and I exited that company in 21. And in 2020, I started a framework for VPM Solutions, and built. And that company, we went live with our product in 2021, and we've been running that company for the last 3 years. So that's kind of the high level of it all.
Yep. All right. So we're going to get to VPM Solutions. Before doing that, though, it's very easy to say in a sentence, yeah, I started this and I got it up to 1,000 units, right? Like it sounds very simple, but let's break that down because a lot of our listeners sitting there going like, hey, whether it's on the investment side, whether it's growing as an agent, growing as a property manager, everyone's looking to expand and scale.
Mm-hmm.
So talk, like, how did you go from 0 to 50 to 200? Like, walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing is, one of the hardest decisions I made in my life was to leave corporate America and start my property management firm. All right. I owned 31 homes at the time. They were driving me crazy. And we started third-party managing while I was working full-time. And we got to about 60 homes that I was managing while working full-time. And it was just pulling me out of corporate America. So in corporate America, we have this mindset that we're safe and secure. I can tell you today, the company I worked for at the time, and I worked there for 12 years, doesn't exist anymore. Like literally Chapter 7, complete bankruptcy. So if you are if you have a full-time job and you think you're secure, to me, and my mindset shifted, that is the least secure I ever was in my career. So I left that job to start the management firm at about 60 units. And that, now I'll tell you, I have no kids. I had no kids back then. I still don't have any children. I had a wife that was making money and my house was paid for. So and I was still nervous. So if you're listening to this and you got kids and you got car payments and mortgage payments, I get it. I really do. But if you can get through those first few years, you'll be wishing that you've done it 10 years ago. You'll like, man, how did I not do this and start my own business? So I started the business. I paid myself $1,000 a month managing properties. I went from I was making about $104,000, $105,000 a year with benefits. And I left that and I started $1,000 a month. I slung real estate on the side to bring in some extra cash. My wife was providing for the family already. And we just started. I hired a business coach even before I left my company. And I was working with a business coach. And the business coach gave me the formula. You got to remember, I was an IT guy for 20 years. My business partner was a pilot. So between the two of us, we didn't know anything about business. So if you are thinking about getting into business, just like if you listen to this and you got into real estate, most likely you have some kind of real estate mentor, real estate coach. You're listening to Tom and Mark on the podcast. You're reading books. It's the same concept. And so we just started from square one. Whatever he told us to do, even if we didn't agree with it, we just did it. We just trusted the process. And so at first, I was in charge of operations, HR, IT, and finance. My business partner was in charge of marketing and sales. My business coach did not talk to me for about a year and a half, like not on purpose. He just was everything he talked about was marketing or sales. So I'd go to these meetings and I'm like, man, maybe he doesn't like me. He's like, no, he's like, you have to solve marketing first. If you don't get the leads, right? Just like if you're looking for properties, if you're not getting potential leads, you're never going to buy a property. So you have to get the leads. The leads is the lifeblood of any organization. And you might say, well, I got to work on sales. No, you have to work on getting the leads first. And then if you don't get a high conversion, then you work on sales. And then once you fix that and you start getting a bunch of business and operations blows up, then you work on operations. A lot of us work on operations first. If it was me and only me, I would have built the best operational company ever and would have had about 10 clients. Steve would have had 5,000 clients and would have had no operations whatsoever. So it was kind of a yin and a yang. And if you don't have a certain skill set, Partner up with somebody who has that skill set. If you're a great marketer and you're a great salesperson, but you're terrible at operations, find that integrator, that operational guy. And again, if you're operations, try to find that marketing whiz or that sales guy.
You know, you said something here that we talk about a lot on here, you know, the escaping the W-2 or financial freedom or whatnot. But a lot of people come back to secure of a W-2 job. But the reality of it is that is such just a mindset. Like you actually have far less control over what happens to you tomorrow than you could ever imagine. Like you literally, you might have secure, you feel secure this week and you might feel secure next week. But 3 weeks from now, when your leadership team meets for whatever meeting for whatever company you work for, it could be about who they're going to be getting rid of next year or how they're going to be downsizing or how they're going to be selling the company and they're not going to need the people anymore. Like the security is just a perception that I guess I've never really thought
I've
about.
worked for 7 companies in my lifetime, including the one that I owned, and 6 of them don't exist, including the one I used to own. Think about that. 6 out of the 7 companies I worked for don't exist anymore. The days of your grandfather working for Ford Motor Company for 65 years and then retiring, those days are over, man.
Well, also, if you're listening to this podcast, like odds are, like you're looking, like you're inspired to do something different, right? Like that's like the built up. That's like who we are, just the characteristics of someone who's probably listening to a real estate podcast. And it's like, yeah, don't go be reckless, but take your shots, man. Life is short. The Hermosi line of like, you get 2 paragraphs on your obituary. This is what he did. This is what he did, and done. Like, just go ahead and take the shots. There's no reason not to.
Now, I will say one mistake that I see investors make is that they quit their job, but they want to buy property and they want to buy and hold. Well, and if you're not going to get money, if you're not going to find, investment dollars, you need the bank, and the bank needs you to have a W-2. So you have to look at your strategy. If your strategy of buying properties to use your credit and your money, you're going to need a job. I've seen way too many people that are investors that are buy and hold investors that quit their job way too soon. And then they can't buy property. Like, why can't I buy a property? I have cash in the bank. The banks don't care if you have cash in the bank because you can spend that tomorrow. They want to see that recurring income. So even though we all understand W-2 is useless, the banks really love W-2. So just something to think through.
Yeah. Before we go on, I'm not sure if you may have talked about this. I've heard you talk about this somewhere else, but when you guys hired that business coach, you didn't go cheap on it. Like you invested a lot of money into the right business coach for your guys' future. Talk to me more about how stressful that might have been, or how you came to the decision of like, this is right to put this much money in when maybe we don't even have it.
Yeah, Mark, every time I have a decision about should I spend the money, I really don't have the money and I do it anyway, the business always finds the money. It's bar none. And I've never had an issue with where the business didn't end up finding the money to come up with the solution. But the way we found the business coach is a real estate investment group that we were vendors of. So we started Empire Property Management. I'm still working. I take a day off because they had this business coach to talk to their vendors because they want their vendors to grow because then all ships rise in a high tide. And there was about maybe 10 of us in the audience. And the business coach is talking. I promise you, he was talking directly to me. That's the way I felt. And I'm like, oh my God, I need this. I need this. And man, every time you hire a mentor or a business coach, like they take you from A to Z, but like you don't have to take to 26 steps. You could do it in like 5. And so that's what we learned. And so, yeah, it was expensive. We didn't really have the money, but we forked it over. I think in a very beginning, it cost us about $3,000 a month. And then it went to like 4 and then 40. Like as you grow, the business coach charge you more money. And I think at the end, we were paying about $60,000 a year. If you think about that, it's kind of crazy, but he took my business. I personally do not believe my business would have survived unless I had the business coach. So he made me millions of dollars because I was able to exit. He made me millions of dollars because I was able to, we were making about $2.5 million a year when we sold. That was our revenue, our top line revenue the year we sold. So without him, without the business coach, I don't think I grow the business. Without NARPM, I don't think I have an efficient business and probably do things, and I probably would have lost some lawsuits.
So just to go full circle on that story of that investment is you end up selling to call it tech startup property management company. That's the same founders that founded Invitation Homes 10, 12 years or 15 years before. So like some other rinky dink operation didn't just swallow you up. You got swallowed up by one of the giants in the industry.
And I think we were valuable because we were in multiple markets. And that's something else I wouldn't have done without the business coach. So the business coach, a really good coach will push you past your comfort zone. Even Michael Jordan had Phil Jackson, and he also had another strength coach. Even the top guys have multiple coaches, and it's just to make them better. And if you keep resisting that coach, then you shouldn't be paying them. Like you don't need to be coach, and you should probably go back to working for the man.
Yeah. All right. So, but scaling in other markets like that, that just seems, most people hearing that, man, that sounds challenging. So, how do you do that? Like, how do you get the boots in the ground? How do you identify a market? Talk us through that process because that had to be, in some regards, a leap of faith.
It's funny, man. That's a great question. Um, Tom, I wish I could say I'm this great mastermind and I'm like this great thinker. I'm just a doer. I realized that people needed help. I needed help managing my own properties. Other people needed help managing their own properties. So I tried to figure out a way to do it. And then NARPM showed me a better way to do it. And the business coach showed me a better way to build a business. Same thing with the VPM. We built our business and we had a hard time becoming profitable. We find these virtual assistants and all of a sudden we're profitable. We can be more proactive than reactive and we're reducing churn in our team, reducing churn on our clients. And I'm like, oh, maybe so when I sold, I'm like, maybe I can do this for others. It helped me. So I wish I was sitting there telling you, man, I'm like this great thinker and like, oh, like I'm looking at all the world problems. I'm just looking at the problem in front of me. And I'm like, I think I have a solution. I was told by people because I came from the multifamily world. I had 3 or 4 apartment complexes, and all the guys I hung out with, they told me like, "Oh, single family management will never work," and I still did it, right? Because sometimes if you know what you're getting into, you probably wouldn't do it. And so, what is it? Ignorance is bliss. I'm pretty freaking ignorant, man. I'm really ignorant. Same thing with the marketplace. Somebody told me, one of the guys that my boss's boss at Mind saw me at a conference, my first conference. He goes, "Oh, that'll never work." Tell me about the two-sided marketplace. He didn't say that'll never work. He just goes, "Oh, tough business," and then just kind of dismissed me, like basically telling me, "Screw you, it's never going to work." And so that just puts fuel in under my fire. That just adds fuel to the fire, and I made it work. I don't know how, but I just realized there's a problem. I niched down in this industry. I niched down to single family. That's what we did, single family management. I didn't do HOA management. I didn't do short-term management. I didn't do apartment complexes. I niched down. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think that people, when they see a problem, they try to solve it. They try to solve too big of a problem without a lot of money. And I solved the single family management problem. I solved the single family property management challenge of team. And I solved the investor problem of managing a single family property management company. And I just stayed really niche down. And will I expand at one point for VPM? Maybe, but I don't have any plans in the next year to do so. Just keep, getting better and better at that one product. So for your audience here who are thinking about like maybe they want to buy single family, maybe they want to buy condos, maybe they want to buy multifamily, maybe they want to do a fund, or maybe they want just pick one and learn as much as you can, connect with all the people who you can help solve a particular problem and just go deep in it. Is because, I mean, I've talked to so many investors. They're telling me like all the stuff they're buying, all the different types of properties they're buying. I'm like, man, you're in a partnership. You have a fund. You're buying, you're buying flips. You're wholesaling. You're buying something and you're going to buy it and rehab it and sell it. Like man, the people that I notice that are most successful pick one thing and just go deep on it. Do you guys find that as well, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I've seen.
No, I agree. There's real estate's just it's sexy, right? So you read about this guy killing it in Airbnb, and then the next podcast you got someone who's killing it in this thing, and it's so easy to get distracted and go follow that, especially when you have nothing to lose because you haven't done anything. When you're new and starting, like everything's fair game to you because you haven't developed a skill set anywhere. Where if
And
you
then
just
you're
focused,
worried that you're going to make a mistake. Well, what if I pick this, but I don't pick that? If I pick the wrong thing. And what happens is analysis paralysis. You wait 10 years, you don't pick anything. Like pick one thing, go deep. And if it's not for you, okay, maybe you lost a year or 2 years. But now you know that's not for you and you go to the next thing.
yeah, you took your shot. You gave it a fair shake as opposed to just, window shopping it.
Opportunity costs. I think there's two things there. I'll say we'll move on, but opportunity costs. You have to be measuring that, and a lot of people when you're first getting into it, you don't measure that. You just again everything's sexy, and and the more you can say you're doing, the it's just more of an ego thing sometimes.
I'll tell you, when I was buying all my properties, I bought, 31 houses. I loved buying the properties. Like that was fun, man. That's like dating, right? And then you own the property and then you got to manage the property. That's like marriage, right? Like, you know, like marriage is, it's not super sexy, right? But that marriage, it's something that you got to spend a lot of time and effort, and it provides great fruit for your life. And you know what I mean? Same thing with holding a property. But buying and holding and managing a property is not super sexy. That's
If
why.
I know better, I would assume you were married 4 times, but
No, one time, buddy, 17 plus years, man, and super happy still.
the other thing about that, the last part of that is, of course, opportunity costs, and then being able to say no. I think Tom, you're at that point, and I'm sure Pete, you get these opportunities as your network grows, as people look at you as being leaders. They bring stuff to you, and you have to be able to say no to those things. And it just might be do this for 3 hours, but that 3 hours you got to prepare for 3 hours, and then comes after that event, you get 24 phone calls for it. Like so now, all of a sudden that 3 hour commitment turned into half a week worth of work. So saying no is the other part of that, getting away from the sexiness of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, my business partner was a yes guy, and somebody would come in and they would say something. Next thing I know, he's going to travel all over the country, and and he called me the no monster. Like that was my nickname. He's like, well, we got to bring it to the no monster, and of course they bring some other cockamamie idea, and I'm like, and I listened to it about 4 minutes, and I'm like, no, and I would walk out.
That's a skill. That's a legit skill.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know what? I'm happy that this recording happens right after what I did this weekend. So this weekend we had our Grit Series event, which we do the real estate investor training here at GC. We did every other month, and this last one we did getting ready for 2025. And a lot of what getting ready for 2025, that the presentation I did and we talked about in the room was really kind of leveraging yourself. I handed out a copy of Who Not How, Benjamin Hardy's Who Not How, to everybody. And, for the people that were working W-2, they have different needs for different who's, and the people that were unemployed, they're trying to leverage their time. They had different reasons. But a lot of Who Not How comes down to delegating or having other people do things. And, you sold your business successfully and you spun up VPN Solutions, which is call it global talent. You can probably describe it better, but you use that for your business as well too. So I guess before we jump into kind of all that, like how did using, property management is very heavy in using remote staff. We have about 30 people that work remotely for us. How did you utilize that leading up to your exit?
Yeah, I mean, 90% of all property management was done by my remote team. My property managers, and I use those terms in quotes, we changed them to asset managers. I just hate the word term property manager. To me, it means gopher. And so your owner client means your property manager, hey, go to my house and go check if the water in the pool is at a high level, or go to my house and sit there for the gas guy. Or I want to talk about this $3 surcharge. I don't want my team dealing with that. Like I pay these people 60, 70, $80,000 a year. I need them to be asset managers, not property managers. And when they're sitting there and they're dealing with maintenance calls or lease renewals or phone calls from residents, they're doing a $10 an hour job. And so I moved all of that. Of course, you can't just move that, right? There's processes you have to create, there's policies you have to enforce, there's training that you have to do, just like anything, whether I hired in the US or Mexico or Philippines, you have to do all that. Once we got all our processes down and our policies down, we were able to have the team we had a team in Mexico. We're in Houston, so we had most of our team in Mexico, Central Time Zone, Spanish speaking, all that good stuff. We were able to then offload 90% of the work from my property managers. What did that mean? What did that in turn do for us? They were able to actually be our inside sales, build relationships with our clients, in the past, if we had a client that we made a mistake with, they would fire us because they were already unhappy. We were able to make our communication better and build those relationships. So when we did mess up, because we do from time to time, we had a lot of grace. And then we were called Empire Property Manager and Realty. Well, no one knew we did realty services. Well, all of a sudden, when my asset managers have free time, we're buying more houses, we're selling more houses, we're getting more referrals. Where people who were trying us out with one door, all of a sudden, like, oh, they moved 4 or 5 doors over. So we grew with all that. So and my property managers stopped doing, and they started managing by reports. Right, we call them taps, 2x4s, and Mack trucks. So you look at a report. Is it a tap? Meaning, hey, I'm going to come. There's going to be a problem here if you don't mess with me, right? That could be, it could be a property that, that had a maintenance ticket that's greater than 7 days old, right? We know that's a tap. The 2x4 could be the maintenance ticket it's over 15 days old and it caused mold, right? And now you got to deal with that. And then of course the Mack truck is that you get sued or lose a client or get a real estate commission complaint. And so we started managing proactively, which made our clients happier. It made our team happier. All of a sudden, my property managers weren't working 24/7 because they would deal with all the little tasks and then they would have to go home and deal with the big stuff. They were able to deal with the big stuff. The churn rate went down on our clients, churn rate went down on our team, and we made more money, which then allowed us to put that money back into the team.
For property management, you're talking specifically about property management. I'll bring up, whether it be wholesaling or dialing for dollars or, self-managing, it ends up being either A, the more touches you have, the better service you should be providing, or B, the more reps you're putting in, the more opportunities you're getting, maybe call it a wholesale situation. And a lot of what we were talking about in Saturday was leveraging yourself. A lot of people do not get to do what they want to do or start, becoming that wholesaler they want to become or find that off market property because they're not putting enough reps in on a daily basis.
Yeah, I find that on real estate, right, you have limited time, right? Time is your biggest asset. And mostly all out there are working full time, right? Doing something else. They have to go to, networking events. There's just a lot of your time that's being utilized. So that means you can't, you need to take yourself and kind of like, how do I split the amoeba, right? How do I split the atom and create like a mini me? Well, that's like a virtual assistant. Now you've just recuperated 20 to 40, 60 hours a week of your time. Then getting leads is the lifeblood of your system, right? Whether you're an investor or property manager, you need leads, you need deal flow. Well, using a virtual assistant for SEO marketing or for just marketing to generate those leads or to actually do cold calling or to become an appointment setter so they can answer the phone. How many times do you lose leads because either you're at work or you're on a call with a deal or you're showing a house or you're looking at something and the phone's ringing and you can't get to it. And then by the time you get to it, they've gone somewhere else. Where again, virtual team can answer that phone. They're not walking around properties, right? They're at their desk. So you reduce your lead loss, which increases your lead flow, which sets up more appointments, which allows you to make more, more deal, which allows you to make more offers, which allows you to close more deals. And then they can help you on the back end, right? How many times you have to like, oh God, I got to go do another CMA. Well, you have the team do the CMA. You have the team run the comparables. You have the team gather any information that you need. Like I got to get this information, got to get the tax records. To have the team do it. Anything they can do from a computer, they can do for you. So they can literally be your transaction coordinator. So you can literally solve some of your biggest hurdles by hiring virtual team members. And we're talking like anywhere from $7 to $12 an hour for a pretty decent, team member.
Yep. So, Mark, I want to go back to time is your biggest asset. I told you we need to copyright this. Others are saying it. So we've been hammering that point home on the show for the last year or so, Pete. What was the first thing that got outsourced? Like, what was the first thing that you were able to let go of and say, you know what, I'm going to create a process for this and I'm going to trust them to do? What was that first task?
So I am terrible at accounting and bookkeeping. So for me, I'm like, that was my weakest part of my game, like operationally or doing maintenance coordination or just doing the tasks that needed for property management, I can handle. So for us, the bookkeeping was the first thing that which people think that's crazy. I can't believe the bookkeeping, but you can put guardrails so they can't steal from you. Like there's like the way I did it, like they couldn't create like a bill and pay the same bill. They had access to my bank account, but only view access. So property accounting was the first thing. The next thing was what was killing me the most was maintenance. So I hired maintenance coordinators was the second thing. So if you are, if you're an investor, listen to this, what are you not good at? That's what I would hire for, right? Are you not getting lead flow? Well, maybe hire somebody and they can help you with lead flow. Are you not good at, the the operational side of things? You can hire somebody to build the operations out for you. You know, the only thing you cannot outsource if you're an investor is the negotiating. Like you have to, like, I think that's one skill set that you have to have, or you hire an agent to do that for you. But that's one thing that I don't think you can outsource for a virtual assistant.
But the skill of call setting is out there, and it's out
100%.
there in
Oh
in a
yeah.
major way. So like that is a big one. I was going to tell you the first role I ever hired to was someone for in the accounting side of things, because as a young company, this was back 2012, and we were running thin. Just so I always had to make sure that everything was reconciled on a daily basis to make sure didn't miss anything. And I hated that. So we actually switched our bank from Harris to Chase, so I could set up limited access for that
Yep.
person, so they could log into my Chase account. They had their own individual login. They knew they're on the other side of the world, and they're able to log in my QuickBooks with limited access, and they're able to do that. So that there's different ways to guardrails, like you were saying, to put it in. That was actually the first one. Now the second person I hired was in Mexico, and it was only to solve my Spanish speaking problem in our office.
Residents.
And I hired them. They're awesome. And then I found out they didn't speak Spanish. Think about that. The interview was in
Funny.
Spanish. Like it wasn't going to be like, I didn't even, they lived in Mexico. I had to assume it. Like, so yeah, that was my first big error on hiring remote staff.
That's amazing story.
What was someone looking to do this, right? Like they're starting to scale and they're saying, man, I need help. I don't want to go buy, I can't go afford the $60,000 property manager, but I need some help in my day to day. This sounds like a good alternative. Setting up the systems and processes, is that something that you would help with, or is that something they need to get in order to make sure that it's going to be successful? Because it's a necessity. It's needed
Yeah.
either way. Like what part would you play in that role?
Yeah. So me, no part. No, I didn't do that stuff. Those days are over. I got a
So
guy.
they have to, this works, but it only works if they are prepared for it.
Right. So what I did is when I hired my virtual team members, I actually hired them while I was building the process. And here's why. If I build the process with them, over time, what that is doing is training them. So once the process is built and they have a say in it, and they one, they take ownership of it, and two, I don't have to sit back, I don't have to go back and build the process, hire somebody, and then train them. I do it all at one. So it's a little more costly that way, obviously, because I'm hiring somebody to literally help me build the process. But you have to bounce ideas off of people. And then once they run the process, they come back and they modify the process. So my rule was I'm the owner of the company. I create policy. You cannot deviate from the policy. You own the process. If you want to deviate from the process, you deviate. If it doesn't work, we go back. But if it works, great. And if you're not sure, then ask, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and then tell me the reason why. But once somebody takes over a process and they own the process and they modify it, you got them. They've now taken complete ownership of that process.
Yep. Go ahead, Mark.
One thing that I think people, I don't know if take for granted or don't take it seriously, but when someone's interviewing or hiring somebody that's remote, whether it be off of Upwork through a service like yours, do we, is, do you interview them no different than you just interview somebody that was in the next state over, right? Or the next town over, right? I think a lot of people just
Yep.
discount you're actually hiring a real human.
I find it like property management specifically is very process oriented. You talk to any property manager that's got about 150 units or more, I promise you they have a move-in process, a move-out process, security deposit process, a process for everything, right? But what they don't have is a hiring process. And I find that amazing that so many people have no idea how to hire. They don't have a process, right? They have a gut feeling. I like this guy. I'm going to hire him. So if you go through our process or if you go through our systems, we have a couple of services. We have the white glove service where we do it with you. It's free and we kind of teach you our process, but you have to do it yourself. or you can do a gold glove process where it's a pay for, but we'll handle everything. We use our processes. And so our process is, we like to hire on attitude. I don't typically like to hire with somebody who has a lot of experience unless it's something that they need experience in, right? So I'm not going to hire somebody who doesn't know anything about bookkeeping, but I need to know a little bit about bookkeeping. But as far as like appointment setting, maintenance coordination, lease marketing, anything like that, I pretty much don't need anybody with experience. Matter of fact, the more experience they have, I find it's the old, old dog, new tricks type thing. And if I have a specific process I want them to follow, then what happens is they say, well, and we did it this way. We did it this way. I don't want that. So I look to hire on attitude. And then, so that means core values, right? So if you're listening to this and you are an investor and you own one property, you own a business, whether you realize it or not, you own a business, and your business should have core values. They should be your personal core values. And the person you're looking to hire should have the same core values as you. And you need to figure out how to ask questions to draw that out of people so that you understand that they embody the same values as you, right? Who do you want in the foxhole with you? Then you have to have a specific job description that is bullet point, that you know exactly what they're supposed to do. If you have something that says answer all calls and then all of the duties assigned by management, that is not detailed enough, and no, and you will never know. They don't know what to do. You don't know what they're supposed to do, and it's a recipe for disaster. Figure out exactly what they're supposed to do, and then create a personality profile behind that description, right? So I'm a big disc guy. We have disc inside of our platform, so you can have the remote team members take discs. It's free. And so you're going to look like, for example, if you're looking for an appointment setter and they have to make outbound calls, then that might be an I. But if they're going to just take inbound calls, that might be a C. So depending on their personality profile, you want to know that job description so that when they take the personality profile, so now I know they have the right attitude based on my core values. I know they have the right personality for that type of job. Now, the only other thing I have to find out is, do they have the capacity to learn? And so we have training courses on our platform that they can take and they can test out. When they pass the test, they get a certification. So you can have them take tests prior to even hiring them on our platform. So now I have core values, I have disc profile, and then I have the capacity to learn and capacity to retain information. And that's a snippet of how we hire. We have about 10-point scoring system that we look at when we hire. But most people who come from working full time never hired anybody because maybe they're in a high end job, but they just don't manage people, to then creating their own little business in real estate. No idea how to do that, and we can help with that.
Hi. So another book that you dropped there without dropping it, Hiring for Attitude, is a great book.
I'm reading it right now.
And it talks about the whole brown shorts method, which, at UPS, if you don't want to wear brown shorts, then
Southwest. So the brown shorts was
Southwest. Yeah. Southwest. So if you're not going to work there. So great book. And if whether in your day job, which we're trying to get you out of, or if you're looking to hire outside, it's a great book for that. Um, you
Hey,
spoke.
look, and hiring people is leveraging your time, right? So you don't have a business until you hire people. I would never have been able to sell Empire Industries unless I had those people working for me. If you are the solopreneur, a solopreneur is not something typically that people can sell. So once you hire people and you're not doing that job anymore, now you have a sellable asset.
Well, that's why, when we talked about you come on, like I had to have you come on because, me and Tom are here to help other people grow. That's our, we've been doing this almost 5 years. We've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of people just stagnate too, or never really kind of grow, or just continue to have an analysis or paralysis by analysis. But what you just said right there, you don't have a business to either growing or you hire people, but we're talking, you're using a lot of property management examples here, but all you self-managers, like, people always ask me, if you could do it again, 21 years ago, how would you have done differently? Two things: I would have not had brick and mortar, that overhead cost. And then two, I would have, my first hires would have been remote. And there's people that are listening right now, guests we've had on here that might be self-managers. They got to the 40, 50, 60, 80, working a full-time job, but they then hired someone like we're talking about here to basically run their show. They're working 40 hours a week for them, running it, and it's fairly inexpensive. So if anyone's interested in hearing some of those success stories for some of the self-managing landlords, it's huge. If you're going to grow, you have to put a dollar value on your time. And if you're worth $200 an hour or even $100 an hour, how much, but you're making 15 phone calls an hour to do collections on the weekend, man, that's way below. And there's someone else that's out there that's happy to make those phone calls and happy to earn that wage that you're offering them. So if anything, you're stealing from other people by not letting them do the work.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference between being scrappy, being lean, and being what I would consider dumb, right? Like this is inefficient use of time when someone else could be doing it. And then like you said, oh, I didn't make the call, but I didn't do whatever. Like you were actually move the business forward, right? There comes a breaking point there of like going from scrappy to, hey, this is inefficient at this point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one or two things. Either A, it's just inefficient. It's not, you're paying way too much for what you're getting, or probably more so what happens is it just doesn't happen. You don't call those people
Yeah.
back like we're talking to, or
Yeah.
you're not sending out the 100 postcards to the addresses that you got 7 weeks ago. Like it's more of the things that don't happen, and there's someone that is happy to do those things for you.
So what happened to me was I bought so many properties that I couldn't I couldn't manage them, right? So then I created my own management company. The day I created my management company until the day I sold it, 8 years, I didn't buy another piece of property. Why is that? Because I was too busy building a company. And I think I see too many of y'all out there. You buy some properties, you're cheap as hell. You don't want to hire a management firm because you think that all you look at is, well, they take 10% or 7% or X dollars a month. And you're not looking at the big picture. You're not looking at the discounts they get from the vendors. You're not looking at how quickly they get vendors out there versus yours. You're not looking at your time that it takes to do the books, manage it, take the phone calls, whatever it is. And I say, okay, you want to self-manage one property, two properties. But once you get to like 3, 4, 5 properties, now you're spending more time managing and less time doing what is that you're supposed to be doing, which is growing your asset base. And so all of a sudden you have this seesaw where it's like I was growing this asset base, and now all of a sudden all I'm doing is maintaining my asset base. And so I have 9 properties today. I've really scaled down a lot. I got 5 of them paid for, 4 of them have a note, and then I own 4 others like where I'm the note holder. So I got like 12 altogether. I don't manage any of my properties. I'm a property manager for 20 years. I mean, I could do it, but I choose not to because I'm building VPM. I'm building a different business, and this business is going to be worth X dollars. If you're in the business of buying, if you're in the business of buying, holding properties, that's your business, to buy properties. Let somebody else manage them. If you're in the business of flipping, then great. Don't flip it and hold, and then you're going to manage it. Like flip the property, do your business, and then outsource the stuff that they're not going to do, so that you can level up and continue to be the CEO of your business versus being a plumber. And how many guys I know own properties like they go in a house to go, to go change out a toilet. Like, really? You don't pay a guy $125 to go do it for you? Like, just what's your time worth? Meanwhile, the guy makes $500,000 a year being a stockbroking guy, whatever. I'm like, do you know what you get? Like, do you know time for money?
Yeah. Yeah. Could have said it better myself. On that, Mark, you ready to wrap this?
Yeah, for sure.
We ended with a powerful who, not how right there. So it feels like a good spot.
That was good. Yeah. That was a good drop the microphone there. Competitive advantage, Pete. What is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while others wish they could?
Competitive advantage for VPM or for Empire?
As your career, your trajectory of your career.
I'll say ignorance is bliss. My competitive advantage is, I'll tell you what, man, Mark, I'm a grinder and I'm a worker. So like, when things look like they're bleak or whatever, I just keep working through it. I'll outwork you. I'm not smarter than you. There's no way I'm smarter than you, but I'll outwork you. And even at 54, I still feel that way.
Love it. All right. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property?
Get a mentor.
Awesome.
Done. Simple.
What do you do for fun?
So I used to be a triathlete. I hung up my triathlon spikes a few years back, and believe it or not, today I walk. I like to walk, and sometimes I'll walk without my earbuds, and I just walk in the mornings and I see the sunrise. I like to walk, and I lift about 4 days a week. And my wife, she does half marathons, and we travel all the 50 states, and she's gonna do a half marathon in every state. So I'll walk like the 10K, and she'll run the half marathon. I thought I was gonna hate it, but I actually love it. I actually enjoy it. So walking, that now
All
now
right.
you know I'm old, man. Like I'm officially old when it's walking is your pastime, you know.
All right. What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity you'd recommend to our listeners?
So I'm a big fan of Traction by Gino
Yep.
Wickman. I've built 2 businesses on it, and if you are going to get into business, that is the book.
Yeah. Mark, I know you're a huge disciple there.
Yep, I gotta leave this and go to my weekly level 10. So, all right. Name other than yourself, name a resource to Chicago investors that they could utilize.
I mean, they're already on the main podcast, so I'm trying to think.
We'll say NARPM. I'll give you.
Give me,
Check them
yeah.
out.
Thank you, Arpa. Thank you for the lifeline.
There you go.
All right. Awesome. Pete, you provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Yeah. So to get in touch with me, I'm old school, Pete at vpmsolutions.com. And you can go to our website, vpmsolutions.com, and create a profile. And the way they can help me is if you create a profile and just play around the site, I'd love to get feedback. What are we doing good? And more importantly, what would you like to see on the platform? That's my main thing right now. How can I improve the platform for our end users?
Well, Tom and I talked about this, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it on straightupchicagoinvestor.com on the homepage. We're going to put a blurb on there with a discount code for anyone. They'll take you to your website. They could create the account there, and then if they use that discount code, which I'm not sure exactly what discount code was, Straight Up Chicago, whatever it might be, they could use that to get $250 off their first placement if they're going to hire somebody through you. So,
Awesome.
So you and me will work offline between now and the time this airs. But if you're listening right now, go over to straightupchicagoinvestor.com, use that code, go check out Pete's website. I'm a big believer in what we're talking about here because it's leverage and it's affordable leverage, right? You know, it's one thing if you can't go hire your $60,000 employee, but it's something else if you can't go and hire your $7 an hour employee. So leverage your time. This is what we're here for. Help you grow, help yourself grow.
All right. Who are we playing for the Chicago Fact? Who's sponsoring?
All right, cool. So we're going to have the Chicago Fact today. We're playing for Sophia Lopez. And Pete, if you or me get this question right, Sophia will get a $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Lavelle Law, Chance Badisher.
All right, let's see if we can take $50 out of Chance's pocket. So, Mark, we're talking about remote work, so I question's a little different. So, the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast, we have roughly 500,000 unique downloads, which, you know, when you think about it, that's crazy. That's a ton of content, which I'm very proud of. About 80% of it's from Chicago. Almost all of it's in the US, but we are it's like 40 or 50 different countries. Which country outside the US has the second most downloads for our podcast? And your options are Australia, Canada, Mexico, France. Which one outside the US has the second most unique downloads for the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast?
I'm going to say Mexico.
All right, Pete, give us one.
I'm going to say Australia because they're huge in property management and they also want to invest into the United States. So I'm going to say Australia.
So you got it, man. And this one that would have been my fourth guess out of the 4. It's Australia. We have it's like 6,000 or 7,000 downloads there. Like
wow.
It's all in Queensland, which I didn't know what that was, but it's a giant territory there. Geographically, it's larger than all but 16 countries. It's a pretty big piece of the pie of Australia there.
Australia, they don't mess around. They're property management. They're about 20 years ahead of us here in the United States. So I know we look to them a lot.
So if you're in Australia, there's like hundreds of you out there. Like, reach out to us. One of you from Australia, reach out to us. We want to hear from you. This is awesome. You exist. We don't know that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Pete, man, thank you so much for coming out here, man. This was great. Hopefully our listeners are going to take advantage of the offer we're going to put on the website. Tom, thank you as always. Man, if you're in Australia, smash that subscribe button. Leave us a chat. No, if you're anywhere, smash that subscribe button. It's really cool. This one wasn't an in-person episode, but now on YouTube, we have all of our in-person shows, and they're actually really great to watch. And thanks, shout out to Lance for being such a great editor. So Pete, thanks. Tom, thanks. Listeners, we'll see you next week.